So in our last section of Chapter 8, we're going to look at the last two pathways that can be used to generate energy, and these are going to be a little bit quicker because once you have an understanding of how aerobic respiration works, then these other two processes become very simple to understand. So if we look at anaerobic respiration, first things first, it's basically the same as aerobic, right? So it's going to function the same. You're going to start with glycolysis, move into the Krebs cycle, move into electron transport or respiratory chain. The difference is it's not going to utilize free oxygen as that final electron acceptor. Instead, it's going to utilize an oxygen-containing ion. So I give you a couple examples on the screen, like nitrate. If you look at the formula for nitrate, there's your nitrogen, but you'll notice there are 3 oxygens found in this ion. And so what happens in anaerobic respiration is it actually utilizes this at the end of the electron transport chain to actually collect those electrons. Or you see nitrite only has 2 oxygens, but again, it is an ion that has oxygen present. So it's not free oxygen by itself that's being used here. It's an oxygen-containing ion. So that's the anaerobic part of it, is that it's not a free oxygen. Okay, and so you kind of look again, looking the same until you get to the very end, where instead of oxygen here, you see those oxygen-containing ions. The other difference that we see here is you cannot count on it to generate those high amounts of energy every single time. It kind of varies from one microbe to the other. We also note fermentation can be used as a pathway to generate energy. Remember that a couple things to be mindful of here. First off, it only utilizes glycolysis. So it's going to take that glucose, it's going to split it, use it to generate energy. It's going to do this typically in the absence of oxygen. So there's no free oxygen available, those oxygen-containing ions are not available, and so it's simply just going to split the sugar, use it to generate energy. The downfall of that is it typically only makes a small amount of energy. So 2 molecules of ATP is typically the maximum that's made here. But there's a benefit to fermentation, because we actually use fermentation in a lot of biological systems. It's also actually used in a lot of biotechnology advancements that we have developed. So for example, if you take yeast and you ferment it, you can produce ethyl alcohol. You can also take it to produce gas. You know, yeast is used as it ferments and produces gas bubbles. It actually causes bread to rise. We know that it's used, fermentation is used in a lot of foods. Again, we've said alcohol. It's used to generate a lot of acidic things, like fermentation used in our muscles. Generates lactic acid, but it gives us the energy to get through an activity or to get through an exercise. So definitely something that's useful in that sense. And you can see here kind of different products used there for fermentation. So quick little comparison chart here, and I think this was a good one for you to glance through, and so you look table 8.3, so this is kind of way back, and would be kind of good to look at because it does give you the pathways that are involved in each of these 3 types of respiration. It shows you who's the final acceptor, the products that are made, and then it goes a step further to tell you who can actually do these things. So you can see where aerobes or anaerobes are able to participate in these types of pathways. Now, one last objective that we see in Chapter 8 is to define what's called amphibolism. Okay, so one of the things that we notice about these 3 pathways is that they produce a lot of products, right? They're not all the end product. There are some products that are produced in between from one step to the next. And so one of the things that they mention is that these products, or you could call them metabolites, right? These products that help us generate other products, you don't want to lose them. Right? You don't want to waste things. And so what they tell us is that all these pathways, or many of these pathways, are bidirectional. That's what amphibolic means, is that only can you use these things to break materials down, but at the same time, you can be using these materials to build things up. And so I give you a really good example, and this is the image that's from your textbook. So you'll notice glycolysis, remember, when we split that sugar in half, it generates pyruvic acid, right? So pyruvic acid can be used to make acetyl-CoA to finish out aerobic respiration, but at the same time, pyruvic acid can be used to build amino acids. Well, why would you want to build amino acids? Well, because those build proteins, right, which are pretty much useful in every chemical reaction that's happening in cells. But they also mention that if you take pyruvic acid and you convert it into acetyl-CoA, acetyl-CoA can also be used to make fatty acids, which can help us make lipids, right? Which are also very important for membranes and storage and things like that, right? So what I want you to understand is that these many products, if you will, that are made from one step to the next, they can be useful in a lot of different pathways. And so this, again, it allows us or allows microbes to be more efficient so that things are not wasted. And that's the end of Chapter 8.